So, astrology is bullshit. We've heard that, right? I want to talk today about the reasons why someone might say that. I am not here to have the argument or convince a crowd of people that astrology is right or astrology is wrong. I find that it works. And I find that whether or not you believe in it, you're still subject to the energies that are around us as they evolve over time. So too do you. There's no getting away from it, I don't think. And until I find a better system, this works. I I am willing to hold conflicting ideas in my mind of like I like my rational life and I miss the days where I was just like, "Oh, this is BS. I don't believe it." I do. I'm not going to lie to you because sometimes I don't want to deal with Saturn. Sometimes I don't want to deal with Pluto. But what I have learned in my life is that it's a bad idea to ignore the prevailing energies. So, yeah, I don't want to fight. I don't want to argue, but I do want to show you the cases for which it's difficult to understand your transits because how do you learn? You get an app. You look at the sky. You get a book. You read the transits. If you have an app that tells you what the transits are, you might find that a lot of them conflict with a lot of the other ones because if you get a list of all of the things, it's like gobbledygook and how do you sort through it? These were my frustrations when I was learning. So for those of you who are interested or think that this is cool and fun and exciting, please stick with it. But the key to understanding astrology and learning it is you have to be open to conflicting ideas and hold them in your head at the same time and see which one plays. Because you can think that something is going to happen based on what you're seeing and find that something very different happens, that it turns out is a conflicting energy or an energy that is stronger than the one that you were focused on. That's usually what it is. If what you think is supposed to happen doesn't play out the way that you think it will. So, Jessica Simpson is a textbook case of somebody who would say astrology doesn't work for me. Why is that? It is because she has most of the energies in her chart are all in aspect to each other. She has a Sun Mercury conjunction, though that is sextile Saturn. The Sun Mercury conjunction is square Pluto. It's trine Uranus. It's in conjunct Neptune, and then Neptune is opposite Venus, and both Neptune and Venus square the Saturn. So while the Sun and Venus are not an aspect to each other, Venus gets called into the conversation. Oh, and I guess I should mention that Venus is trine Pluto. That's kind of a big deal. Venus gets called into the conversation when these other energies get energized. So today, it just so happens, I'll show you the sky now, Mars is conjuncting the Sun, which that's a transit where your ego drives are at their peak and you feel motivated to do, like go out and do, or go out and be you. And if you're not doing a good job of going out and being you, someone is usually making you angry. So often you're motivated to assert yourself. Sometimes it's because someone is making you do it, or it can be a highly creative time. But that's just if you have Mars conjunct the Sun. If you have Mars conjunct the Sun and conjunct Mercury and sextile Saturn and square Pluto and trine Uranus and in conjunct Neptune and sextile Chiron here, that's a lot all happening at once. So it's overly simplistic to read the transit to the Sun and think that you understand entirely what's happening to you. And it would probably take a while for someone with a chart like this to put it together of why the definition of the transit doesn't make sense. You have to consider all of it at once. Another issue with when you're learning, and I'm guilty of this, and I know everybody else who I've ever talked to in any depth has done, is cherry picked some chart elements that we like and focused on those because that's the good news. Those are the good aspects of your chart. Those are the things that you do well, and kind of ignored the bad ones. So you see something good heading for a good part of your chart and you're just rubbing your hands together like, this is going to be awesome. But if you are ignoring the things that you don't like, it's not going to be so awesome, right? So we all do it. There are also, yeah, I could actually talk endlessly about learning astrology, and there is a lot of the time a willful blindness of like, well, I don't like that so much, so I'm not really going to look at it. But as you mature and over time, you can usually find more constructive uses of the energies that you don't like so much if you're willing to be honest with yourself. I digress. So someone like Jessica Simpson would really have a heck of a time making heads or tails out of all of this energy. I'll take away the current sky. So again, it's more simplistic because, so let's do this a different way. Right now in the sky, Saturn is opposing her Saturn. I just took the sky away, but you can see that it's right here. So the Saturn would have just the invisible Saturn that's right here in her 5th house would have been trining her sun a little bit ago, like a couple of weeks ago, trining her Mercury a little bit more recently because it's at a later degree. In conjuncting Pluto, which might have been a day or two of discomfort, trining Uranus here, and squaring Neptune. This one is less comfortable when you have Saturn and Neptune in any harsh aspect. No one likes that. It's kind of a universal thing. So just something to consider. You would need to read all of these transits at once and try to understand all of it. Like, that's hard for a beginner. Additionally, with this type of chart, it's a whirlwind. It's like 10 things are happening at once because all of the different energies are being stimulated. So it's kind of nice to have a chart like this because there's always something happening, but you tend not to have a whole lot of restful or dormant times because there's always something happening because these energies are pretty spread out and there's a diversity of things that can happen. Okay, just another little pop quiz if you're up for it. What planet in this chart doesn't aspect any other planet? Jupiter. And the moon and Mars are in exact aspect, but they're not really doing anything. So they're kind of a standalone situation. So if one gets aspected, the other one definitely gets aspected, but they can have a lot of nothing going on and then a frenzy of like all of this activity and then nothing. So right now, Pluto has been in conjuncting the moon and trining Mars, which the trine to Mars is nice and that gives you a lot of energy and like inner strength, personal strength, literal strength. When you have Pluto Mars, go get a trainer, go to the gym, work that energy out. But the in conjunct to Mars is very uncomfortable and that's a personal hit. The moon is as personal as it gets. So that's unpleasant. Anyway, these operate, I believe, only in conversation with each other, and Jupiter is by itself. So the Jupiter energy, when you have an unaspected planet, it's hard to harness and it's foreign to you. So when it is being aspected, you can access your sense of optimism and your sense of broadness and your it's all gonna work out type of approach to life. And Jupiter and Neptune can be somewhat similar in their function in this way, so I'm not saying that she doesn't have any optimism. But the issue with Jupiter is if you're not used to harnessing Jupiter in your day-to-day life and then something suddenly hits Jupiter, you can really be prone to overdoing. So it can be long stretches of nothing with like overdoing in some area of life. So overconsumption, overenthusiasm, jumping into something with both feet without really looking. Like Jupiter is optimism, but you need that to be checked with reality. And when you have a Jupiter that doesn't make any aspects, that can be an issue. So that's just a fun little aside. But everything else is integrated into the chart in a way, or at least things that talk to each other. So it would be difficult for someone like this to really resonate with astrology without giving it a lot of time. When I was learning astrology, one of the few people I talked to who was another astrologer told me to just watch Mars go around your chart because it takes about 2 years for Mars to make a full circle. And when something makes a full circle, it aspects everything. So you have an idea of generally what it does because Mars just energizes the point. So you find out what happens when that point gets energy. It's that straightforward. I find that Saturn is also a very good teacher. And I lean heavily on Mars and Saturn because they are the most obvious planets. With some other energies like Venus or Mercury or the moon transits only last a couple of hours. You can't say for certain that, oh, what I felt for those 2 hours was definitely the moon. No, just no. If Venus is your chart ruler, you might be more able to understand Venus's activity in your chart, but I'm never 100% certain, like, oh, that's Venus, unless Venus is retrograde and moving incredibly slowly, which it is right now as I record this. So we're in the exception to the rule time. But you learn through observation and getting a general sense of what the different points in your chart do. And then you can hone and refine and understand as you see an incoming energy. Okay, this is what the last experience is like. How can I either not do that again or really take advantage of this time and use it to its best potential? Ideally, that's where you want to be. Okay, let's talk about another situation which would be very hard to read astrologically. And it would have helped if I had searched for the right thing in my software. Here is her sister, Ashley Simpson. Remember her? Ashley has a different situation from Jessica, but the same problem. Ashley has a bunch of conjunctions, and conjunctions are fusions of energy. So she has a Sun-Mercury conjunction, a Venus-Saturn conjunction, and a Neptune-Mars and Jupiter conjunction. And that means that anytime any of these points get hit by a transiting energy, you cannot just read the transit for, let's pick an active one. Yeah. So she has Neptune squaring Neptune in the current sky. So here's the current sky. There's Neptune, it's at 29. So, and I'm not precessing this, so I'm not adjusting for what is actually happening today, but here's Neptune, and it's a 90-degree aspect from this here, and then in a year or so, it'll hit this Jupiter. Someone with this type of chart could not read the transit for Neptune square Neptune and expect to have an all-encompassing idea of what that will actually do, because she has spent her whole life with Whenever Neptune gets energized, so too does Mars, so too does Jupiter. I realize that Jupiter and Mars and Neptune are in different signs, but this is definitely a conjunction, especially because she's Pisces rising. She has a sus birth time, but we're gonna pretend that this is like completely accurate. If she's Pisces rising, then actually Neptune and Jupiter are the co-rulers of her chart, making them strong in the first place. And when Jupiter especially is a strong planet, you kind of got to give it wider orbs than you normally would. It just likes to take up more space when it's a strong planet in your chart. Unlike her sister, so I would call Jupiter in Virgo not strong, because that's not a sign that Jupiter likes in the first place, and it doesn't make any aspects, and it's not her chart ruler. So Ashley Simpson has a way more active Jupiter and obviously Sagittarius situation. Very much more Jupiterian and Sagittarian and Piscean than Jessica. Again, I digress. So someone like this would be really frustrated because if as a beginner, because when you read about something like a transit to Venus, you get all excited and you think that all of these really nice things are going to happen. But Ashley Simpson has Venus conjunct Saturn, which means that when Venus gets energized, so too does Saturn. So you can have some nice social times that then result in responsibility. If we were to switch these and put Saturn at 10 degrees Scorpio and Venus at 14, then the Saturn energy hits first, so you get a lot of responsibility and then you feel nice about it, or you get a lot of responsibility that then ends in social engagements, or Venus's love life stuff. So you go to work and you meet someone who you then develop a romantic relationship with. So you do read these in order of which way they go in the sky, and remember, it's counterclockwise is the way that you read things. But if you are just looking at Venus and you're just reading these Venus transits and you're expecting all of these nice things, you are gonna say astrology doesn't work because you didn't factor in Saturn. And you cannot, someone with conjunctions, especially this many conjunctions, but just conjunctions generally, doesn't understand what sun life is without Mercury. They're fused together. Doesn't understand what Venus is like without Saturn. Doesn't understand what Mars is like without Jupiter and Neptune, which, yikes. And no offense to anyone with this situation, but this is a Mars that doesn't really know what to do with itself, because Mars is the personal planet and Neptune is a transpersonal planet, so you only have access to it on a clear day when you've been meditating. And then Jupiter is a social planet, so it's one of the ways in which you navigate life, but it's not personal. You don't take Jupiter actions or activities personally. So you have a personal planet that's besieged by two energies that are not personal. And that's me choosing my words very carefully because Neptune has an undermining effect on Mars. So you just you don't know when to assert yourself. You feel like you can't assert yourself, but then Jupiter here is a cheerleader who's just go, fight, win. That's rough. And then the fact that they're currently being squared by Neptune, that's even rougher, because that just continues to inflate an already very inflated energy. And there are schools of thought of how to handle this particular time, because she's having the Neptune square and the Pluto square Pluto. And those are transits that are like quote unquote midlife. There's a lot of material on how to handle these and how to think about approaching them. But I wanted to give you two really good examples that happen to be related to each other of people who would very much struggle to learn astrology, because you have to hold conflicting ideas in your head of how something might manifest, and then see what happens, and then use that information for the future when something hits again, to say like, okay, here's what happened last time, and here's generally what to expect, with the understanding that life is always going to surprise you. And that's the beautiful part of life, is that you really never know. And as the prevailing energies of the time evolve, so too do you, as I already said. But it's true. So this astrology is a great tool for self-understanding and personal growth and expansion. But the best way to approach it is scientifically and with an open mind of, I wonder what this is going to do. And then you have the actual experience, which 99% of the time is a personal and emotional experience of energy. That's how we process this. That's how it tends to play out. You have dealings with other people. You have energies that bring people and things into your life that are new and different, or old and irritating, or old and great. And you can use this as a tool to better handle yourself and continue to grow as you experience all kinds of things. But you have to be patient, and there is a diversity of ways in which a chart by itself, without what's in the sky to express, I believe, I've read this several places, charts can only repeat themselves in exactitude once every 25,000 years. So we are pretty unique. It is possible to have a chart that's like very like yours, or meet someone who was born at the exact same time as you. But there is a diversity of ways that same energy can express, which is also really cool, and one of the reasons that I love doing this. So that my message here is, have an open mind and be patient and see what works, but understand that for some people you can have clumps of energies that are head scratchers and that work in unexpected ways, at least according to what traditional, quote unquote, traditional astrology will tell you. So if you go into something thinking, because you read it in a book, that this is going to be the exact experience of your transit, and you have a chart like Ashley Simpson's or Jessica Simpson's, it might not. And that's okay. Don't get frustrated. It actually would be pretty normal to be scratching your head and thinking like, well, what the hell was that? And so that's what I was hoping to do, is illuminate why you can have some haters who are very resistant to learning astrology because it didn't work for them. That can happen. This is a learning and growth experience for all of us. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.